European nations are organizing flights to evacuate their citizens from Niger following the coup against the elected president. France, Italy and Spain have organized transport, and Germany is urging its nationals to join these flights. The West African regional ECOWAS bloc has condemned the coup, but the junta's ruling neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso are backing Niger's new military rulers and are threatening to use force to defend them if necessary.
A stark warning from the junta leaders of two neighboring countries.
The transitional governments of Burkina Faso and Mali hereby warn that any military intervention against Niger would be tantamount to a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali.
Niger's new junta leaders claim that the toppled government had formally authorized France to carry out strikes on Niamey's presidential palace to free and reinstate deposed president Mohamed Bazoum. France's foreign minister denied the claims. France says it only recognized Bazoum as Niger's legitimate authority. Meanwhile, orders from Paris came through to evacuate its citizens and other EU nationals who want to leave. With Niger's airspace closed and all commercial flights cancelled, the only way out is on evacuation flights.
We were asked to take just a small bag with the essentials because we can't take a suitcase.
The EU has condemned the coup, calling it a threat to Niger's democracy and stability. But so far, there is no plan to pull out all staff. The European Union has decided to offer EU personnel in Niamey the possibility to leave the city on a voluntary basis after the coup in Niger. At the moment, we haven't issued a formal evacuation order. The EU will keep its presence in the country. The EU is monitoring the situation. With the threat of a regional escalation hanging, evacuation orders can come any time.
Joining me now is Dr. Oluvle Ojevle. He's the ENAC Program's Regional Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Senegal. Welcome to DW. Now, some European countries are starting to evacuate their citizens as we speak. How dangerous a place is Niger at the moment?
Thank you so much for having me, Nico. It's quite understandable that with this volatility that is going on in the country now, a lot is unpredictable. And the juntas came into power on the bedrock of a campaign that they want to restore they want to address the deteriorating security in the country. But you can see now that they will be preoccupied with regime protection, and security is going to continue to degenerate. So it's quite understandable the reason why people are evacuating and they are leaving, because the priority of the government now is not security of life and property, but regime protection.
Now, despite facing jihadist threats on all of its borders, Niger has so far managed to prevent militant groups from settling in its territory. How likely is this to change now?
This is going to change significantly, particularly if Niger turns to a pariah state and cooperation breaks down, particularly within the multinational joint task force between Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, and Niger itself. So what we're going to see is a situation in which the wide expanse of land between Nigeria and Niger, which is about 1,200 kilometers, if security cooperation breaks down in that region, we're going to have a terrorist group, violent extremist group having a field day in the region because of lack of potential cooperation on the part of the two countries.
Now, the coup leaders have been given 1 week to reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum. What is the most likely scenario here? What do you think will happen?
Well, the most likely scenario in this situation is that diplomacy is the path to trade. And the reason is not far-fetched. When you consider the potential humanitarian consequences of invading the country now in the name of restoring democracy, the people who are going to bear the direct consequence are the ordinary civilians on the streets. So I emphasize that ECOWAS will explore the option of diplomacy. And that is going to be stretched to the extent to which the juntas want to stay in power. But what is possible now is to negotiate for exit within the next 12 to 24 months. I think that is what is likely now, to follow the path of peace, peaceful restoration of democracy in the country.
Oluvle Ojevle of enact. Thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you for having me.
For more on this, we're joined now by Alex Vines, who's the director of the Africa programme at the Chatham House think tank in London. Welcome to DW, Alex. Thanks so much for your time. We're seeing that neighbouring Mali and Burkina Faso are aligning themselves with the coup leaders in Niger. How worried should other countries in Africa's Sahel region be about this?
Worried, I don't know. I think it's a reflection of just how concerned the juntas are in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, and in Bamako, the capital of Mali, because suddenly they found that the regional economic community, ECOWAS, might well intervene in Niger. That's not something they're expecting, and of course that sets a worrying precedent for them. And so that's why I think they've made this announcement today.
OK, now we know that West African countries have imposed sanctions, as you say. They've threatened to use force if President Bazoum is not reinstated. I mean, is there any chance at all that the coup leaders will step down?
Well, there's a lot of diplomacy going on at the moment. The preferred plan A is to convince the junta leadership in Niger to step down. There's a 7-day deadline that the ECOWAS summit gave on Sunday to them. The African Union has given them 14 days. I think the realistic scenario is that it will take a bit longer. And it's also evident that other mediators have now been sent in to Niger. For example, the Sultan of Sokoto is a traditional leader, but a former military man. Sokoto is the region just neighbouring Niger in Nigeria, and so clearly the ECOWAS heads of government are hoping that he might convince the putschists that they need to step down.
As you say, it's complicated. There's a lot of diplomacy going on. And, of course, the geopolitical situation in the area isn't simple either, is it? Could you walk us through the geopolitical situation? Because Russia is showing a stronger presence. What is Russia's interest in this area?
Yes, so Russia has military support is providing military support of Mali through particularly the Wagner mercenary group. It's also very present in the north, in Libya. It's trying to engage more with Burkina Faso, and the junta leader of Burkina Faso was one of the guests of honor at the Russia-Africa summit that ended on the weekend. So related to Niger, I think Russia is looking at whether it has an opportunity there, but it is contradictory. Russia was part of the UN Security Council statement last Friday condemning the coup and declaring that there needed to be an immediate return to constitutional rule in Niger. The foreign minister of Russia, Mr. Lavrov, has also twice called for the return of constitutional rule. But on the other hand, the leader of Wagner has issued a statement saying that he would support the putschists in Niamey, that what they are doing is a noble task of combating imperialism, neocolonialism. So it is a bit confusing. We also do see some flags of Russia in the crowds being brandished, but I wouldn't overinterpret that at the moment.
I did actually just want to ask you about that, because over the weekend we saw anti-French, pro-Russian demonstrations. I mean, my question was, how much actual support is there for the coup amongst ordinary people in Niger?
So it's difficult to judge. I mean, the crowds haven't been enormous. They have been violent. There has been property damaged and destroyed. And, OK, there are Russian flags in the crowd, but I don't think that necessarily suggests a deep-seated desire for Russian engagement in Niger. What is true is that there is strong anti-French sentiment. No doubt about that. France is not popular in the Sahelian region, and so one of the reasons for brandishing Russian flags is actually a declaration of being anti-French. So I think that's one of the ways that you could look at it.
We're seeing that France, Italy and Spain are preparing to evacuate the first European nationals from Niger. Can you tell us what that means for the country, these evacuations?
Well, Niger is one of the very poorest countries in the world. It's reliant on international support up to $2 billion a year. And so the suspension of international development and the pulling out of international partners is very significant for Niger. I think many Nigerians will be very concerned about the future, seeing this exodus of foreign nationals that's underway. France, Italy, and Spain, for example.
Alex Vines from Chatham House, thank you so much for your time and for your analysis.
Thank you very much.